And we are live on Facebook from the European Parliament here in Brussels. Thanks for joining us. We are joined by Mrs. Maria João Rodrigues, did I pronounce it well?
Yes.
Who is a Portuguese member of the European Parliament, but also author to a resolution of the Parliament that supports Commission's initiatives on an update of the EU's social dimension. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll have questions coming from you, so keep them coming. Christina will be reading them.
Hi everyone, I will be monitoring your questions, hence all the devices, but please also check that you have your sound on, so turn on your sound and leave please as many comments and questions as you want, and we will be monitoring and selecting some of them to ask to our member here.
So, back to Mrs. Rodrigues, can you explain to all our viewers live now, what is the European Pillar of Social Rights?
Well, this is the biggest initiative ever to make sure that the European Union is there to respond to citizens' problems. If they are children, if they are young people, if they are men and women trying to reconcile the daily life of work and family, if they are senior people, if they are people in risk of poverty, the social pillar is bringing concrete responses to all these kind of problems. And by coincidence, after our report being adopted in the European Parliament, the European Commission is presenting right now the package. So I will assess the package, I will see if the proposals coming from the European Commission side are meeting our expectations.
And the Commission will be presenting this package today. In the afternoon.
Yes.
We got a lot of questions from our Facebook followers. The first one, which is, it's not entirely a question, but it's also a concern, coming from Darren Lawson, who said, heading towards a social Europe with exploitative labor practices and fairer labor standards, does it mean more exploitative? Does it mean, in other words, that fair makes exploitation more lucrative for people, for businesses?
Well, this is a big question coming, and this pillar should ensure that all workers, whatever the jobs they are, whatever the sectors, the regions, they can count on two very important things. One is a labor contract, a clear one, with decent working conditions, and the second one is full access to social protection and healthcare. And I'm saying this because I know that more and more people, particularly young people in Europe, don't have these two guarantees. So the pillar is there to make it work. And this was one of our main proposals. We want all European citizens to count on these two guarantees: a labor contract, decent working conditions, and covered by social protection. Sometimes they don't have these. When they work to an online platform,
like the new forms
yes,
of working?
They are called freelancers and these kind of things. This seems appealing, but please take care, because this is not for your future. You need to make sure, if you want to have a real future, you need to have this labor contract and access to social protection.
Like, let's take a real life example, an Uber driver who works in, let's say, Lisbon. The only revenue of this person is what they get from the services they offer through Uber. This person is exposed to risks.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. That's why we need to make sure that online platforms, whatever the sector they are operating, they are employers. They must be treated as employers and have obligations regarding their collaborators. And the obligations should be clear, defined in the labor contract, with guarantees when it comes health and safety, proper payment, decent time working, access to training, and also some predictability, because we need to make sure that these workers, they know how to organize their lives. And they have a proper job.
And for the moment, some of these conditions are not part of the
legislation. No, we are still far from this. So that's why we need European standards about this, to make sure that these conditions will be ensured for all member states.
Good. Let's see if we have any questions from Christina coming from our live viewers.
So far we have had some comments and questions mostly concerning the unpaid internships. So Karina Cat is saying too many European agencies still offer unpaid internships, and she's also mentioning a lot of companies in Italy, and a lot of some other viewers are saying you go Maria, you are a great inspiration. And Avril Rus is also saying okay, people are sharing as well, so thank you guys for sharing this live. Continue.
Well, thank you again for this question, because I know this is a big issue, a bit everywhere, particularly with young people. And let me tell you, unpaid internships, these are a very smart way of exploiting people, and we cannot accept this. In my report in the European Parliament, we said internships are jobs, and we need to treat them as jobs. So the same thing I was telling about jobs, they need to have a proper contracts with full guarantees, and they need to have access to social protection. Otherwise, this should not be considered a European standard of internships.
Actually, a lot of questions reached us regarding internships. Some people were even afraid that this will make companies step back a little bit and not start hiring people because of an obligation to offer paid internships. Do you fear this as well? That companies will step back a little?
Well, you know, I count that employers at the end of the day, they understand this is in their interest to count on workers who are really having opportunities to develop their skills. For this they need to be stabilized as much as possible. And then it's also in interest of companies, particularly SMEs, to have a level playing field across Europe in the single market, to make sure that all companies are competing on the same basis of clear social standards. So ultimately this is also in their interest.
Simon Wright, one of our Facebook viewers, asks, would this also apply to registered charities, political groups who rely on voluntary workers? Or this is a too detailed aspect of it?
No, this is indeed a very important issue. We need to make sure this is really volunteer work, because sometimes these are jobs disguised behind volunteer work. So again, I'm saying whenever we have an activity which is conducting to a useful outcome and a paid outcome, this is in fact a job, and this should be treated as a job. So please pay attention to that.
So this will also be
yes,
part of the...
followed and monitored by the European Social Pillar, of course.
Good. Employment is also one very important topic, but I guess we have some questions coming in.
Yeah, we have some comments about internships, if I may. Vivian is saying, paying internships will enable almost equal access of young, talented and capable people to the same internship opportunities, regardless of their family financial status. I think this is very important indeed.
Yes, of course.
And Joe is saying unpaid internships should be made illegal with immediate effect.
True, and it's a topic that keeps on coming back. Let's talk a little bit about employment. There is a viewer saying who's called Colin Delaval, who says that who is asking, what do you think about a European chart of wages, like a monthly transparent report all around Europe?
European Charter
of Wages. This should be the market of employment ranked by category of wages. Do you think this is feasible in and useful, having such a transparent market in the digital EU?
Yes, I think also a big concern of the social pillar is that we need to fight the situation of the so-called working poor. This is something unacceptable in Europe. We have a quite high level of productivity, so we can ensure for everybody a real living wage, a wage which allows someone to have a decent life. But this is not the case in many regions and sectors. We have people working a lot, but they remain in poverty, and we need to fight against this. So what is the principle enshrined in the social pillar? This is a principle about a minimum wage. We need to make sure that the minimum wage will increase in relation to the average wage in each country, because sometimes we have social inequalities which are very deep. Social inequalities are increasing in Europe, and we need to really to block this trend. That's why the social pillar will introduce a principle of a decent living wage as something to be generalized in Europe.
Is there a willingness among member countries of the European Union to, according to your experience so far in the dialogue that has been
well, this is something we need to see, because I'm sure about the European Parliament. My report calling for this was backed by a very large majority with 5 political groups. Now this proposal from the European Commission will present it also to the Council of Ministers. So let's see how the ministers react. Let's see how each government is dealing with this. There is something I need to tell you, is that we here in the European Parliament, we are representing all the European citizens, and will put pressure on the Council of Ministers to make sure they will adopt this social pillar.
And Parliament's wish list is long. One of them, the issues that we have addressed, is also the European EU Social Security Card. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Yes. This is also a very innovative idea coming from the European Parliament report. This is very simple. We need to make sure that all citizens, they can circulate in Europe. This is their right for different purposes, to get further education, to look for a job, just to live there. And they need to make sure that the entitlements they have accumulated over their life to have access to social protection, they will be recognized in other countries. So a first step for this is to create a very simple instrument. It's a card you have with you called European Social Security Card. Like that you can show to your employer, if you move to another country, look, I could accumulate these rights, and I need to be sure these rights will be transferable to my new country. So this is a very practical thing. But there is another instrument, we are calling for this, very important and really new, is everyone should have a personal activity account. This is also very important.
What does that mean?
Because then you really accumulate every right you have built up during your working life, and you can use these rights for different purposes. If you want to have a break, to make a new training course because you need to update your skills, you can use these accumulated rights. Or if you need to make a break because you need to assist your child, or you want to assist your old parent, or whatever the purpose, you can use this account.
It's like a
on
bonus,
a certain flexible way. You can adapt this to your personal needs. So this makes welfare more suited to the needs of each one, according to each own preferences.
Okay, it's like a bonus card, let's say, that will serve to everybody to use their time there in the let's say in the course of their professional.
Yes, is also a way to show to each one how can I contribute to build up my social rights, because the account will make these rights more transparent for everyone, and then you can use it according to certain margins to your particular needs. So I think this is a very interesting instrument also.
Great. I guess we'll have some more questions coming in from our viewers.
We do. We have some questions concerning the digital sphere. Donato Russo is asking, would you think of a special employment law for innovative startups? I assume startups do need some different kind of setups for employing, hiring people. And Helder is saying many people do prefer working as freelancers instead of having a contract with a fixed company. The downside is the lack of social protection. What would the solution be? Extend social protection, or would they be forced to open their own companies?
Yeah, again, a great question, because indeed people can make this choice to have their own startup, to become entrepreneurs, to be freelancers. Yes, they have the right to make this choice, but this means that we need to adapt our welfare systems to this. So the social pillar is saying that if you are an employer, if you are an entrepreneur, you also have rights to social protection. So that's why extending social protection to all is a basic request of the social pillar. And this will facilitate if someone needs to create a startup, and of course this involves a certain risk. This one knows that in the end, let's hope this will work, this startup, but if there is a problem or if there is a failure, they can always count on a social safety net. And this is very important also to encourage entrepreneurship in Europe.
And to see that the talent actually comes to work in this company.
And to make the best of the talented people, absolutely.
And another viewer, Akis Leokopoulos, is asking which are the plans of the Parliament in the future about securing basic social rights in those member states that face economic crisis?
Yes, this is also a big concern of the pillar, because let me tell you, the Parliament is asking not only for updating standards for all kinds of citizens. The Parliament is saying we need to have the means to deliver on these standards, otherwise the pillar is not credible. And so this is particularly important for countries which were hit by the crisis, most hit by the crisis. Because this means that you need to deliver on these standards, let's say access to skills. Okay, this is a big investment we need to do everywhere, and particularly in these countries because they have sacrificed their investment in education and training. But for this we need first to have the room of maneuver to invest in education in the national budgets. We need to make social investment on people. Secondly, we need to make sure that the community budget, particularly the structural funds, is there to complement national budgets. And finally, if we speak about countries which belong to the Eurozone, something must be created in Eurozone, which is a budget for the Eurozone to complement the national budgets. The social pillar adopted by the Parliament is asking for all this, and this is vital to make the pillar really working. But there is a second example for the countries hit for the crisis, which is the following. We are asking to monitor always the social situation in the country in such a way, if there are big social problems, let's say high unemployment or high youth poverty or whatever, you need to correct not only social policy, you need to correct economic policy. You need to create the conditions to have more investment in this country, to create more jobs, better jobs, because otherwise we are having a kind of brain drain. So these countries are losing sometimes the most talent and brilliant part of its human resources, and we cannot allow this.
And the social pillar will address this part of intervention in times of crisis. Like you said, you mentioned now that we need the social pillar needs to address also the part where there is youth poverty and the intervention in economic policies of the member state.
Yes,
it can be a little delicate. How does it?
Well, but let me tell you, my real purpose with all this initiative is that we are designing an ambitious social pillar to change the way European Union is working. Because we cannot have European Union which is destroying jobs or it's downgrading social standards. This is exactly the opposite we need. So why do you need European Union? Because we need to use the scale of European markets, monetary zone, and political power to say that we are a powerful continent and we want to ensure good living standards for everybody here. And those, let me refer, such as Mrs. Le Pen in France, who is now claiming that it's better perhaps to go back to national borders to protect citizens, they are completely wrong. This is a big illusion, because all countries now, they are involved by big global markets. These will not disappear. So on the contrary, we need to use the full political weight of Europe to impose the good trade relationships which will protect our standards. So that's why European social pillar is the right way to go. We cannot just go back to national borders to protect good working and living conditions.
So it's broader scope. You said this also in the previous interview. It's not. It has come. It's time for us to change our understanding of the European project, and that means, by your own words, that it's broader than that. Not just an economic integration, but also social and.
And we got some questions. Yes, this is the time, and you saw this in the Rome Declaration adopted in March. This is the time for the European Union to say we are much more than a market. We are much more than a monetary zone. We are a political entity which is focused on delivering better living conditions to our citizens. This should be the main driver of European integration.
And on this good note, let's switch to some more questions from the viewers.
Yeah, we actually got a question from Snapchat from Jeunesse, who's saying, "Hi, I am a student and it's relatively hard to get an internship nowadays. Don't you think that if you make the companies pay, they will hire less and less trainees? Don't you think that that this will have a bad impact on internship search?"
A question that we addressed also earlier.
Yes, we also discussed about this, and that makes a distinction. Because you have internships and you have traineeships. Traineeships sometimes are not paid because they are an extension of the curriculum, education curriculum. This is a way to enrich your education. You need to have some professional experience and some contact with companies, okay? So traineeships are another thing. And they are sometimes necessary to make the bridge between education and the real job. This is one thing. But internship, this is most of the cases real jobs. So you need to pay attention. When you feel that you are really working as another worker close to you, and you are not paid, let me tell you,
that
something is wrong.
That should ring a bell.
Yes, something is wrong, needs to be corrected.
And it happens very often, yes.
Connected to that, I'm sorry, Robert, Laura is saying, how would you give incentives to companies to offer more paid internships? Do we even consider giving incentives to companies? I'm not so sure.
Well, in fact, there are many countries where we can do this in order to facilitate the recruitment of young people. I myself, as a minister in my country, I introduced this measure. We were giving incentives, fiscal incentives, to companies to hire young people. Yes, absolutely, we can do and we should this.
Great. What are the next steps now? You mentioned the Commission today will present the decision, and then you will be working again on this. The social pillar? I
can tell you. Today, of course, I will be in the front row of the European Parliament reacting to the Commission package. And I will be very demanding. This is our role in the European Parliament. We set a very high level of ambition and we are waiting a strong package. Okay, so you have my first reaction already today.
Today, great.
And my critical reaction, this is exactly my role. But then we'll go on. We'll go on because this is a big package with a lot of measures we need to monitor the delivery of all these measures, and I will organize all this work with the European Parliament. I will put pressure on the ministers. There is a moment where we should have the proclamation of the social pillar.
When will this moment be?
This is to be set, but this will happen, I hope, this over the next months. And we need to make sure this will be a big moment to change the direction of the European Union for the sake of citizens. So this is my expectation, so you can count on me to organize a big pressure, but I would like also to count on you to be very active, because we need thousands, in fact millions of people, citizens asking, we want the social pillar to work.
Great. Sounds like a very big and important project, and I wish you best of luck with your work. You will need it. It's and we'll be here, of course, to communicate. Probably we'll have other interviews and discussions with our Facebook followers. Unless there are no questions, we can close.
Let me just ask one more from Nuno, who's asking, will you be supporting European Parliament's youth intergroup proposal to ban unpaid internships within the Parliament?
Well, this is already a very good initiative, and of course we are supporting this because this is in line with the social pillar proposals.
Thank you.
So if you want to see Mrs. Rodriguez's reactions today in front of the Commission, follow our live streamings from the Parliament's website, europarl.eu. We'll be back with other lives next week, the earliest. Thank you very much, and good luck with everything.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.